My name is Kristen. If you are new here, I'm a licensed therapist, a certified personal trainer and fitness coach, and just an all-around wellness coach for women who are hoping to change their habits, improve their routines. So what we're here for is, this is our second week of the Conversations with Kristen series. So we had week 1 last Thursday, and just an overview, if you weren't able to join that live, if you signed up, you should have gotten a replay of that. But if you weren't able to watch it yet, just a review of what we talked about in week 1, is self-sabotage. So I wanted to talk about that one first because I really felt like, how else can you get started if you don't talk about the ways that you're in your own way? Like you literally can't even go forward, right? So we talked about self-sabotage. I highlighted 3 common patterns that I personally see in the work that I do and have experienced myself, but that's another story, which are denial. And we talked about the various ways that we can remain in denial, whether that be with ourselves or with other people. Procrastination was a big one that we talked about last week. Got a lot of people agreeing that procrastination, putting off the inevitable, is a huge barrier for them. And then lastly, we talked about negative influences, unsupportive environments, that sort of thing, that can really be challenging. And so I gave 3 solutions for that, one for each area, okay? Number 1, when it comes to denial, that's one of those things that we really have to come to understand ourselves. People can point out things that are in our own way or concerns that they have, but ultimately we have to be ready to change. You have to be tired of hearing your own excuses over and over again. And to be honest, some people never get to that point. And that's just a unfortunate reality, but it's the truth of the matter. It just depends, right? And so the next one was, we had procrastination being met with accountability and structure. We can get in our own way, stalling, over planning, overthinking, and we need something or someone to disrupt that cycle. And so accountability and structure of some sort can help with that. And then the last one, negative influences. That really comes down to a two-pronged thing. It's either setting boundaries and perhaps distancing from those influences for at least a period of time. This could be related to any positive thing that you want to implement, or a negative thing that you want to stop doing. So if I want to stop eating out fast food and take out every night, and my boyfriend wants to eat out and eat fast food every night, I'm going to have some decisions to make around what my boundaries are going to be with him, or, how I'm going to handle that. Do we need to hang out every day? If that's like, what else can I do with my time that could be better for my growth? So that's an example of that. But then also, you've got to seek out your own circle. So people that are joining this call, for example, or this live, for example, are people who are kind of in the same headspace that you're in. That's an example of reaching out. Being in the B3 Fit group is an example of like-minded people. And so who are you surrounding yourself with? So that's the overview. My dog is joining us per usual. Hi there. But that's the overview for last week. And I want to dive into week 2. Please be sure that you're dropping your questions. I would love to answer questions rather than just hear myself speak. But let's dive in. So we're talking about habit change and consistency, and we're actually going through each week the stages of change. And so these conversations build on each other. Last week, we were talking about getting out of denial, getting out of your own way, and being ready for something to shift. This week, we're talking about being prepared for your transformation. And so I want to put a stat out there for you guys that at least half of the people, 50% of the people that desire change, who have an intention of change, skip the preparation stage. And those people who skip usually regress, relapse, go back to old habits, forget about the loose plan that they had within a month's time. So when you skip this step, you are setting yourself up to regress or experience failure in a way that maybe wouldn't have happened had you spent time pausing and planning for the action steps. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, everybody got that? So this is the preparation stage. I realize I have something I want to change. I'm getting ready to do it. but I'm not going to impulsively jump into it tomorrow because I haven't prepared anything. What am I doing? What's the problem? What am I doing? How am I doing it? Who's involved? What do I need? So many times it's just like tomorrow. Next thing and we don't even think about what we actually need. So I want to talk to you guys about the first one. I just mentioned it, was being impulsive. That is a major issue with this type of situation. Hey, Rosa. Hey, Courtney. Being impulsive about the changes that you want to make. All right. So think about it. I like to think about this with the analogy of being pregnant. Okay. So most of us are women here. If you got pregnant today, are you ready to have that baby tomorrow? I mean, raise your hand if you just feel like you would just be ready to take that on. Major lifestyle shift. Major responsibility. I think we could all touch and agree that we would not be ready for that. And the same, maybe on a lesser scale, maybe on a less extreme scale, but the same is true for change. You need to prepare. You need to prepare for that child. You need to get some things in place. You got to get your mind right. Courtney said, I'm still not ready. Exactly. So you gotta really be thorough in this stage so that you can be successful. And so many people jump from the intention in their mind to the action without much of a plan, and then wonder why, I wonder why that didn't work, or I wonder why I keep getting my own way. And it's like, well, did you consider how you normally get in your own way? Did you prepare for those obstacles? And so pausing to make sure that you're ready and make sure that you have the proper structures in place to be successful is the solution for that. But if you respond and you just jump into something impulsively, you're probably going to come up against the same things that you always come up against. And the key here is that we're trying to do something different, right? Number two is you need more information. So in this pausing stage, when you're preparing, lack of information is going to set you up for issues once you get started. Okay. Do you have the answers to the questions that you need to have the answers to in order to be successful and move forward confidently with your plan? All right. This might include some things from last week. What are your patterns of self-sabotage? Do you know what they are? If you're just tired of doing the same old thing, but you don't know what the same old thing looks like for you from beginning to end, well, then now you're not really going to be able to equip yourself to do anything differently. Okay. I would also ask, what is the issue? You know, me, as a trainer, as a coach, women oftentimes come to me with the issue that they think they have. And then after maybe 2-3 months, you know, not initially, maybe we're still working with that initial issue presenting concern. This is on the coaching side or on the therapy side. But usually as we get more settled and you have someone else looking at your situation, you start to realize that what you thought was the issue is not really the issue. Okay. So for example, I'm a personal trainer. People come to me all the time wanting me to help them get in shape and work out. 9 times out of 10, well, usually there is an issue with being consistent with what they do for their workouts, that sort of thing. But almost always there's something else, either whether they're trying to outwork some of their food relationship concerns that they have, whether they have body image issues, whether they have even just underlying physical health issues that they haven't really dealt with. And so if that person jumps into a training plan and it doesn't work, it's not because it wasn't going to work. It's because it wasn't the solution that they needed to begin with. It wasn't the plan that they needed to begin with. So gathering all of this information really sets you up for success in knowing how and what you need to do in order to move forward. Okay. Everybody understand that? So if you don't know what you're getting yourself into, you're not going to know how to move forward and move through the various stages of your action plan. Okay. And the last thing, this is the big one, is planning for obstacles. I know I can't tell you what, every January, every new quarter, every first of the month, anything fresh that happens, there's a lot of good energy. It's the honeymoon stage of changing. I'm changing my life. I'm getting myself together. We have all these plans. And we are rarely thinking about the obstacles that we're going to face. And this is not to be negative. This is just to say, let's be real, okay? you might be golden. You might be golden for 3 months, 4 months. And I always say give it a full year, because every season has its issues. Every season has its challenges. You know, the weather's a little different. It hits different. You don't really know. I mean, it just changes things, right? And so, but we haven't planned for the normal obstacles that we face. We have no strategy to do anything different. We know we've been doing the same thing over and over, but we haven't really come up with a plan or a strategy for how, okay, so when I come to that bridge this time, here's what I'm going to do. Okay. This could be a short example of this could be the weekends. You know, you can start over on Monday as much as you want to. That's great. I advocate for starting over as many times as you need to. But if you never plan for your Friday, Saturday, Sunday, doesn't really work. Okay. And so last week I was sharing a little bit about how this approach and this formula, these tips related to my drinking problem that I had. And so I can totally see in hindsight how this was a part of my issue. Okay. I really wanted to stop drinking on Monday morning, y'all. I swear I did. It was terrible. You know, the hangovers, you don't move through them on Sunday like you used to. That's just me. I'm just telling y'all my story. I don't know if anybody can relate to that, but the hangovers and the consequences of like just the physical feelings, you know, on a Sunday going into a Monday, I definitely had intentions of stopping, you know, drinking, reducing my drinking on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but I never prepared for the obstacles of a stressful week. Well, I'm not saying I never prepared prior to actually pursuing recovery and really getting serious about it. I didn't have a plan for what I was going to do. So, okay, so what are you going to do on Friday this time? What are you going to do when your ex reaches out to you this time? What are you going to do when someone pisses you off this time? Oh, I didn't plan for that. I just had really good intentions on Monday. That's all I was really worried about, was the feel good of starting fresh. And I never really planned out when my triggers happen or when circumstances aren't ideal, how am I going to deal with that? And the same thing is true for you guys with whatever. And again, my struggle that I use in this scenario is my drinking, but this is the same for my sugar intake. Immediately after I stopped drinking, it was like I still needed to plan for that too. I needed to work through what those issues were and not just think that I was going to take things away and somehow cope in a different way. Okay. And so you have to know that kind of stuff for yourself. And you also need to plan out what you're going to do to replace what you normally do. Otherwise, we end up doing the same thing that we've always done. Okay. And so I want to, that was just a short synopsis of those 3 things, and I'll review them again. All right. So we're talking about preparing for change. So we know we need to change something. We're getting ready. I talked about last week, we're in the double dutch. We hadn't quite jumped in yet. And I got to stop and see, are my shoes tied? All right. Is it wet on the pavement? Like, you got stuff you got to figure out before you can just jump in to the double dutch and think that you're going to be successful. And that's the stage that we're at today, is how are you preparing for the changes that you want to see? So 3 ways that we get into our own way, or 3 challenges with this stage, and then also 3 solutions. Number 1 is being very impulsive about the change. All right. Just because you have an intention doesn't mean you can bypass the preparation and go straight into the action. I know you have a lot of energy around it. I know you might be excited, or you might be at a low place and feel like you have no other option, but it's going to be in your best interest to pause and take a moment to plan. And if you can't really figure out what that looks like by yourself, that's when someone else can be helpful in helping you map out, okay, here's what you need to do. And that was the case for me with some of the lifestyle changes that I was making, is that I did not do that part alone. When I was doing it alone, I was continuing to hit my own self-sabotage patterns because I couldn't see them. So I had someone else point out the blind spots, help me get a plan together, and then I was able to be successful. Okay. So pausing on the impulsivity, thinking things through. What do I need? Who do I need? How am I moving forward first? Then taking action. Okay. And the second one is, in order to do, and during that pause time, you got to gather information. All right. Sometimes we can be working on the wrong thing, and that's not really the source of our concern or something that we need to be focused on. Gather information about what it is that you struggle with. What's the research about it? What are the approaches that are typically successful with whatever you have going on? I cannot speak to this enough. Let me give y'all another example. I love my little examples. And this is no, I always say this, but this is no shot to male trainers. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. We've all been on Instagram. We all see the buff, the buff man with the veins, and he's just training 50 women out of his gym. And this is no shade, maybe a little shade, maybe a little shade, but y'all don't tell nobody, okay? We all see them. So here I am, I haven't worked out, hypothetical. I hadn't worked out in months, and I get on Instagram and I see this buff man that just looks so in shape, and all these women with their waist trainers on and their sweat suits on and all this other kind of stuff. And I want to do what they're doing. I hop, jump, skip, call, set it up, and I'm in the gym moving forward with him within the next week. Have I thought about, is he the type of coach that I need? Are those women working towards the results that I actually want to see? Is that my issue, that I need to be in a gym with, doing whatever kind of workouts? What about my body type? What about for me, it's like, what about my knees? Like, do they have a modification? Like, what do they do at this gym? You know what I'm saying? Is everybody doing the same thing? Can I get like a personalized, experience with this? We don't think about it. We don't gather the information around what coaching style works best for us. We just see something that we want and we think that it's going to fit for us, and that's usually where we get in our own way. And you're absolutely right. Comparison is the thief of joy. Thinking that someone else, because of the external result or even the grit that you see them have, because I know some of these posts and videos can be very encouraging. You've got to gather more information around, okay, what does that look like for me? All right. And so I'm not saying that all male trainers, y'all know the aesthetic I'm talking about. Okay. I'm not saying that you couldn't work with a male trainer and have intentional, coaching sessions and that sort of thing. But sometimes we need a woman who understands a woman's body and a woman's goals and a woman's mindset. Sometimes just thinking that you're going to have this masculine energy that's just going to whip you into shape or do whatever else for you is just not in your best interest, self-esteem wise and sustainability wise. Okay. So that's just a small example. Okay. And then the last thing is planning for those obstacles. Without a plan, you are really just setting yourself up to do the same thing over and over again. And it's not necessarily, you're not abnormal in that way. It's like anybody that would go into something without a plan is bound to face some certain things that are going to set them back. And so can we plan for everything? No, we cannot plan for everything. And sometimes we can be so glued to our plan that we also get in our own way. But there is a balance in trying to figure out, okay, what are some things that I could kind of like pretty much see myself struggling with, and let me make a general plan for what I'm going to do in those situations. And then I adapt that. I can change that up and make it into something that fits in other scenarios outside of that. And so I want to leave it open for any questions or any comments. Let me go through and see what folks are saying. I see a yep, I agree. I hope I said something good. I'm glad you agree. And then let me look on here. Sometimes I can't see all the Facebook comments. Brand new car feeling with no spare tire. I love that. I love that analogy. I love me a good analogy. Definitely. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being excited, being motivated, being sick and tired. But please know that that motivation is very fleeting. Okay. That motivation is, and I have some clients and former clients on here now, and I think we can all attest to the motivation that you have when you first start something. It ebbs and flows, you know what I mean? And so how nice is it to have a structure and a plan and a system that works for you, even when your motivation is up and down, that you don't have to only rely on your motivation to move through. So many people start with motivation and forget about the discipline aspect, which would require a strategy. Okay. So, hey, Kenyatta, glad you could join. That's all I have, guys. I wanted to, let me check and see. I have some questions. Let me see if I can pull those up really quickly and see if I have any questions to answer that were related to this topic. Let's see. Let's see. Y'all had some good questions that you sent me. Sorry, I should have had these up here. Where can I find them? Oh, there we go. All right. Is it even possible to change? How can I change my negative mindset? I think those are good questions to address in this session, and then some other ones that we'll address in some later sessions. But how can I change my mindset? That's a great question to ask during this stage, okay? So if you start taking action, not saying that you got to have it all together before you can start, but you want to have a good idea of what things you need to be working on proactively in this type of situation. And so how do I change my negative mindset is something to work on in the preparation stage. Am I going to incorporate, am I going to get into therapy? Am I going to practice positive affirmations? Am I going to tap into positive mindset meditations, into books that are encouraging and help me improve my self-esteem? Those are things that I need to kind of have mapped out prior to getting started, so that when I come up against obstacles, I'm not coming up against the obstacle and my own negative outlook about it. Okay. Is it even possible to change? Absolutely. Absolutely. It's possible to change. I think we just always have to right size and be realistic about what change actually looks like, and understand that oftentimes we need some sort of, some level of uncomfortability, of some level of discomfort, in order for change to happen. Sometimes that is the case. Doesn't always have to be the case, but we are motivated, human beings, like we are motivated by discomfort. And so it is possible to change. But who was that? There was somewhere I read where they were just saying, like, not many people want to change when they're like on an island, on a private island with their partner, on the beach, like kicking back. Most people don't change then, Most people change when things aren't so peachy, you know what I mean? Like when there's a struggle. And so it is possible. You just got to catch yourself in the right time, in the right headspace and time. So how do I plan for what other people do? I think you're talking about as far as like, if you're trying to change something and other people are not necessarily on the same page. Is that what you are asking about there? If you see this and you can, oh, I see. I find where I struggle is letting the actions of others throw me off my plan. Okay. Your awareness of that is really half the battle. I would say that's a great thing to know. There are many people who don't know that about themselves. And so what I would say is kind of focusing in even more on what those scenarios are, because I imagine there's times where it's a little easier to tolerate or where it's a little harder to tolerate. And so, think about what those specific scenarios are and just plan ahead for what you may need to do. And sometimes, again, I'll reference back to my situation with a drinking issue, which I know can be a different intensity as far as change is concerned. But there were some places and some things that I just didn't engage in for a while. And, I've relatively gone back to basically living my life the same, outside of being sober as I did before. But there's certain things and places and stuff that I just didn't do at the beginning. And that's because it was serious. And that's because I really needed to not be tempted by that. And so sometimes it takes space to take care of that. Sometimes it can be, sometimes it's got to be more communication around what support looks like for those people, if possible. And then also just preparation for, okay, I already know this person is not going to be on the same page with me. How am I going to show up for myself? Where's the rest of my support system to help me through this situation? And so even if I was in a situation, even now, with my fitness journey, okay, I'm not always feeling it, and I don't necessarily have, you know, people, there are people in my close circle, family and friends that don't necessarily keep the same lifestyle that I do, but I'm preparing and I'm holding myself accountable with people who align with that. And it really helps a lot. So not doing it alone is another thing. Find some other people. Okay.